If I were to sit down and hold up the DVD for this movie, you would either laugh at its absurdity or grow extremely confused for the same reasons. The cover is so amateurish you'd expect it to have been impossible for a human being to have legitimately put unironic effort into making it. But you'd be entirely wrong, and the movie itself is equally incompetent. Meet Cool Cat. Now, ever since a few months ago when PewDiePie made a video discussing it, Cool Cat himself has seen a huge boom in popularity to the point of reaching mainstream YouTube crowds. So I'm sure most of you are at least somewhat familiar with what I'm talking about, but if not, it's an educational kids movie that uses an animal mascot as its protagonist to communicate basic morals. A good comparison would be to Barney the dinosaur. Like him and other children's mascots, Cool Cat is used as a mouthpiece to give advice about certain subjects for the sake of teaching life lessons. In this movie specifically, these range from how to deal with cyberbullying, what to do when you find a gun, the importance of looking both ways before crossing the street, and a variety of other things, all bundled up into a movie known as Cool Cat Saves the Kids, and accompanied by a series of books and shorts. But because of the movie's amateurish nature and lack of self-awareness throughout, it became somewhat of a cult classic due to the ironic enjoyment one could get from watching it, akin to other movies such as The Room or Troll 2, which hold similar reputations. But Cool Cat differs simply because of the creator himself. Derek Savage, or as he's known in the film, Daddy Derek. This true savage has a long history of directly responding to reviews of the Cool Cat movie as well as anything else he had a hand in making. And usually this doesn't turn out well for him considering his urge to lash out at people. Derek Savage is an interesting character, and for the sake of understanding the movie itself, it's important to understand the man behind it all and his interactions online. For the sake of brevity, I'm just going to give an overview since it's not the main topic here, but I'll leave links to other better videos on the matter if it interests you. Daddy Derek created Cool Cat Saves the Kids in 2015, and shortly after, the movie's trailer was discovered by the popular movie critic, Your Movie Sucks, or Adam.
It was last year that my good friends at Everything is Terrible shared a link to the film's trailer on their Facebook page, and as soon as I watched it, all I could think was, oh god, I have to see this movie.
I discovered Cool Cat through the Facebook page for Everything is Terrible, which is a, I guess, company that takes a bunch of bad things, mostly old VHS stuff from the 80s and 90s, and kind of puts them out on the internet in funny edits most of the time to try and poke fun at just how bad the content from 80s and 90s were, or at least not like super popular content. Yeah, they posted a link to the trailer for Cool Cat Saves the Kids on their Facebook page, and immediately I saw this and I was like, okay, I have to see this movie. This looks hilarious. And the trailer was very clearly edited by Derek Savage because the editing was hilarious.
Adam would go on to review the movie himself in February of 2015, and Derek Savage would respond quite well.
Derek's response was surprisingly positive to my review. He left a comment saying thanks. He very clearly understood all of the promotion that this was giving him because people in my audience were interested in watching this film, and so they bought it from him. They bought the merch. I plugged the merch because, you know, I didn't want to take this thing that nobody had ever heard of and trash it and be super negative towards it. I was, you know, very critical of it, but at the same time I was like, hey, buy the t-shirts, you know, support this film sort of thing, and I think he appreciated that. He did not like the pedophile comparisons that I made. For obvious reasons, I guess. But yeah, I was just joking. Anyway, it's just, there's some things in his film that are really, really inappropriate, and that's part of what makes it really funny, is his lack of self-awareness in that sense.
And don't think I'm not aware that this is an easy target, but I feel like I needed to even out my channel a little bit while I'm in the middle of analyzing an intelligent art film. So here's a nice and healthy dose of stupid.
He's about to graffiti our neighbor's wall, and it's not cool to paint on someone's wall.
But even still, Daddy Derek was quite positive towards Adam, and this led to a small friendship between the two for a short time. They apparently spoke about some of Adam's critiques and felt that the movie should be re-edited to remedy some of the issues.
Hey guys, just an update for the sake of keeping you informed. As some of you have noticed, the Cool Cat DVD that some of you have purchased off of Amazon isn't the exact same as what I reviewed. It turns out that Daddy Derek more or less George Lucas'd his Cool Cat movie based on some of the arguments that I made in the film. He considered a lot of the arguments to be legitimate, and he made some changes to the film. I haven't seen the edited version yet, but I've heard that there's now a shot of Cool Cat looking both ways before he crosses the street, and that some of the weird editing mistakes have been fixed.
Adam stated that the editing flaws and production problems added to the ironic enjoyment, but took issue with a few problems that came up in relation to the lessons the movie was trying to teach. For instance, it was pointed out in a scene where Cool Cat and his friend receive a text from a stranger, the movie actually encouraged them to open it.
Hey, Cool Cat, I just got a text, but I don't know who it is.
Well, there's only one way to find out. So, see what it says.
And in another scene in the movie, Cool Cat states to always look both ways before crossing the street, and then fails to take his own advice in the very next scene. In general, most of the serious talking points Adam levied against the movie were for times when the movie's intended lesson is undermined or communicated poorly, while most of the jokes done in Adam's review were at technical flaws. I strongly recommend you watch this review, given how integral it is when talking about the Cool Cat movie as it is today. Plus, it's just kind of a good video, so you should probably watch it for that reason, too. At the time of its release, Cool Cat reviews were scarce, and the changes made to the recut to help alleviate the flaws of the original were done in direct response to Adam's critiques specifically. What's important to note, however, is the recut is the only available version, and many people such as myself bought it without knowledge that Daddy Derek had essentially George Lucas'd his movie. Adam specifically states in his update video that the original version will not be unavailable for those seeking to watch it ironically, and will be auctioned off on eBay instead so the two can remain available to their separate audiences. Those being the children Derek intends to show the movie to for the sake of education, and the cult movie fans seeking to watch it ironically.
So if you go on eBay, there's now a DVD that says YMS Review Edition. That is the original version that I reviewed. Anything else is the George Lucas version.
However, when you click on the eBay link for the original version that Adam puts in the description, it shows that Derek has since stopped selling it, and redirects to a separate movie, which is ironically a third cut of the Cool Cat Saves the Kids movie with even more adjustments than the recut.
Yeah, basically, what I didn't know at the time but discovered later on is that Cool Cat Saves the Kids is basically just the other shorts that he had made stitched together with some footage in between to try and explain why you're moving from one scene to the next. So he had shorts like Cool Cat Finds a Gun, or Cool Cat in the Hollywood Parade, or Cool Cat Stops Bullying, or whatever. And through those shorts, he was able to get people like Vivica A. Fox and Eric Estrada involved because it's just, a tiny short, and they probably think, okay, this is good for my image. It's like an anti-bullying message. It's basically like a PSA, but then he took that footage and then put them basically in a feature-length movie after the fact, put them on the poster, and used them to promote his film, which is kind of funny. And since my review, he made other alternate versions of the same movie, so when I'd criticize something like, hey, Cool Cat just said to look both ways before crossing the street, and then he just darts across the street without looking, maybe that's a bad idea because you're trying to teach kids a message. So, after my review, he wound up changing the film to include a shot of Cool Cat quickly looking both ways before crossing the street. He just edited another shot in. There are other changes that were made. Some make more sense than others. I don't remember exactly what each of these changes are, but I mean, there's several different versions at this point. And now his new Cool Cat, the Kid's Superhero thing is literally just the same movie again with like one new song and a bit of extra footage. So it's really, really confusing and kind of dishonest the way that he's trying to sell it as this whole new thing. He's convinced that the only reason why Cool Cat Saves the Kids isn't on Netflix is just because it's not promoted enough. Like, he thinks that the quality of the film is good enough to be a Netflix movie or to be something that a studio would pick up or get a theatrical release. And so, obviously, he's going to continue trying new gimmicks. Superheroes are very popular right now, so he throws in the word superhero, like, oh, this is a kid's superhero movie. Now it's marketable, and obviously that didn't really happen.
The reason the original is no longer being sold is likely because of the drama that occurred 3 months later when another reviewer, known as I Hate Everything, made his own review of the Cool Cat movie as well, with a somewhat harsher tone given the hyperbolic nature of his channel.
So describing this thing is actually a lot more difficult than it sounds.
How's that sound? Come on, buddy.
Because nothing really happens. It doesn't particularly have a traditional structure or any focus at all, really. Well, it does claim to have a point, but it's so ham-fisted and on the nose about every subject it's trying to teach kids that it just kind of comes across like an insane fever dream parading as a kid's safety movie.
Up until this point, most were under the impression that Derek Savage was a fairly understanding guy who was open to having his work criticized, but what resulted posted from this told a different story.
And for all you people that seen those BS reviews out there, you know, the ones I've shut down, please don't judge all some punk what they say.
He started issuing copyright strikes to both I Hate Everything and seemingly any other channel that made negative reviews of his movie, claiming that these videos were infringing on his copyrighted property.
Last week, I took down several videos that were copyright infringing against my content.
I Hate Everything made videos discussing this, and what resulted was Daddy Derek becoming more vocal about the thoughts regarding the negative attention his movie was receiving, causing people to view him much differently than they originally had. His image would only worsen when a series of emails were made public by I Hate Everything, wherein he not only harassed IHE himself, but also allegedly impersonated a law firm to take down more of I Hate Everything's videos when IHE wouldn't give in to his demands for Cool Cat related videos to be removed. To onlookers, Daddy Derek turned from a lighthearted but out-of-touch movie director with a respectful tolerance for criticism to an oversensitive, trigger-happy maniac with a blatantly incorrect understanding of copyright law. Given the fact that Adam's review stayed online during all of this, most saw Daddy Derek as abusing YouTube's copyright system to silence criticism of reviews he personally didn't like, and may have been giving Adam preferential treatment because his review was less overtly harsh.
It's really confusing why Derek tried to take down Alex's video from I Hate Everything at all, because it was, you know, a lot of the same criticisms existed that were in my video. It wasn't so much more mean than mine. Perhaps he didn't plug his shirts or his DVD sales as much as me. Maybe that's the biggest reason why he didn't try to take down my review. But yeah, he acted very positively towards mine and inexplicably very negatively towards Alex's video. And it's nobody really understands why, because the man is very unpredictable and kind of makes up the logic of his own universe as he goes along, kind of works backwards to just justify his actions. And yeah, he put me in a really uncomfortable situation because behind the scenes, while Alex was dealing with his shit, I was trying to get Derek to stop with the takedown notices and say, hey, can you just remove this? Because this is fair use, right? Like, you can't just decide that my video is okay because you like me and then copyright claim Alex's video and other people's just because you don't like them, like when it's just as fair use, you know? I spent a long time in email conversations with him, basically explaining to him what the Streisand effect was, giving him a lot of thorough, detailed knowledge on fair use, and why, even if he doesn't like Alex's video, Derek is in fact infringing upon Alex's copyright by attempting to take it down. And Derek just wouldn't budge. I sent like 2 different emails that were 10 paragraphs long each, and Derek wouldn't listen, and Derek uploads this video telling people like, hey, why are you giving me hate? You should hate Alex from I Hate Everything. This kid's a no good punk. Adam supports me. Just ask Adam from YMS. He thinks I'm a good guy and I'm in the right. I'm like, I never said that. Like, you can't tell people that I'm supporting you in this when I'm not, and I'm trying to get you to stop. And for him to release a video that is essentially putting me out there saying that I would support this very immoral, very, I guess, illegal copyright takedown bullshit that he was doing, it kind of hurts my image because my entire channel is using copyrighted footage to make my own fair use content, and I would be a hypocrite if I stayed on his side with this. As much as I wanted to be in good contact with the guy and be on his good side, I just couldn't do it, especially after he brought me into it by putting my name in that video, acting like I would support him on this.
Although given the fact that Adam's review made a lot of subtextual jabs at Derek, it's likely that his enjoyment of the review stemmed from his inability to see these jokes, so when the harsher reviews became more direct about things, his true feelings about criticism became more clear. His online activities support this, since it appears from how he acts online that he's under the impression that the fanbase around Cool Cat is out of genuine enjoyment for the movie as a kid's safety film, when in actuality, most of his followers are cult movie fans who watch him for the ironic humor. In his video addressing I Hate Everything specifically, he even acknowledges sales have gone up greatly since the reviews, but still retains his negative stance on the ones he'd taken down.
Okay, but the thing is, the reason why I know it had never hurt my brand, and I'm not stating this, I mean, over the past week, Good Lord Almighty, I have sold more Cool Cat movies than I usually do in a month and a half period. More Cool Cat t-shirts. I had to place another order because I'm selling out of everything.
But regardless of his worsening image, the drama with I Hate Everything ended fairly quickly once Adam himself stepped in and made a video explaining the legality of reviews to Derek.
So in a calm and civilized manner without attacking your character, I'm making this video to help you and everybody else understand exactly what fair use is.
When this video was released, Derek Savage essentially cut all ties with Adam by blocking his Twitter accounts and removing his cameo from one of Derek's upcoming films that Adam had offered to star in.
I wound up making my Cool Cat Learns Fair Use video, and I thought that I was very forgiving and understanding despite the criticisms that I was making. I thought that I was being very fair. I wasn't overly mean, but I was calling him out on his bullshit because he wouldn't budge, and I tried to handle it behind the scenes. He wouldn't allow it to happen, and so I had to make my own opinion public because he threw me in there for no reason. And after that point, I messaged him on Twitter being like, okay, well, even if you disagree with me on this, please at least articulate your disagreements and, I'll listen to you and we can work something out. But this is not, what you're doing is not okay. And instead of responding like an adult and trying to come to any sort of understanding, he blocked me on my Twitter. And then over the course of the next several years, found all 5 of my Twitter accounts and blocked them one by one when I've never interacted with him on any of those other Twitter accounts. And he just keeps finding my other Twitter accounts, almost like he's searching for them or something. I don't understand it. Very childish, very bizarre.
Despite this, however, Derek retracted his strikes from the channels he'd attacked, and things settled fairly quickly. Daddy Derek had some additional drama with other channels later on, such as The Odd Ones Out and Monkey Jones, which I'm pretty sure a decent chunk of you remember from a while back.
Monkey Jones Stops a School Shooting is almost 100% a project fueled by pure spite. By pure spite and hatred and a need for vengeance. It all started when Derek Savage, the con artist behind the Cool Cat film series, announced a new short film called Cool Cat Stops a School Shooting, and he announced he would be crowdfunding the project, a 20-minute short film where Cool Cat, his meme character from such hits as Cool Cat Saves the Kids, and I think Cool Cat Gets Molested. Cool Cat would evidently be stopping a school shooting, and I thought it was the most wonderful idea, and I wanted to be a part of the project, so I made a video asking Derek Savage if Monkey Jones could be in his short film as the school shooter, and he agreed to the terms that my fans would help fund the movie. And things were going great, and we were pumping a shit ton of money into the project. But the problem is, I don't remember the exact number, but he was expecting truly an astronomical amount of money for this 20-minute short film. I think it was like in the realm of 15 to 20,000, just something really fucking absurd. I should probably look up the exact number, but it really doesn't matter. Because long story short, he did not even come close to hitting this retardedly high goal. So this fucking con artist decided instead to commit fraud by changing the Kickstarter 3 days before it ended. There were thousands of, I think we had like $9,000.
Again, I'll leave links to all this stuff, but it's fairly disconnected from the subject matter at hand, so what's the point in discussing it now? Today, most of the effects from all this drama have faded away, except for what became of the original Cool Cat Saves the Kids movie as a result. As far as I know, 2 cuts of the original movie exist, excluding versions marketed as such. There may be more, but there's no way of knowing for sure since these 2 versions are impossible to distinguish when buying the film. As of the drama ending, the covers are identical and nothing on Derek's site mentions the recut, making it necessary for someone to go through the changes made. There are 2 cuts. The first being the original cut that most of the review channels make videos about, and the second being the George Lucas edition done as a response to the critiques in Adam's video. And given the fact that Derek Savage denounced Adam after the drama, it's no surprise that he would be inclined to stop heeding his request to keep the original version in circulation. So by the end of it, we're left with a slightly altered cut that Derek Savage sells to this very day, and an original version that has been officially taken off the public market and limited to the copies that already exist today. As stated, there are other versions of this movie movies such as Cool Cat Kids Superhero, which is another recut, but given the fact that it's marketed as a separate movie entirely, it's not a direct replacement for the original. When I bought Cool Cat Saves the Kids in 2018, I did so to watch it ironically with my friends on my 20th birthday. And as sad as that may be, what made it even sadder was the fact that half the iconically bad scenes were missing entirely because I'd bought the recut with no way of knowing the original version I'd seen dissected in reviews had been made completely unavailable. But fortunately, with the help of a friend who was even more of a cult movie fanatic than me, I managed to get a hold of the original version, which most of the reviews had showcased. Using VLC, I was able to rip both cuts from the discs and put them side by side in editing software to examine the individual changes made. So consider this an analysis of both versions to help determine whether or not the new version is worth buying, with half its funny moments lopped off in editing. But also consider this a character study of an unself-aware man trying to learn and grow from criticism for the first and seemingly only time in his career. Because since we have both versions of the movie as well as the review that prompted the change, we can pull back the curtains and attempt to understand Daddy Derek's intentions for making the adjustments that he did. So already less than a second in, it's apparent that things are different. Version 2 was given an anti-piracy warning. Ironic, honestly, given everything that's happened. But this aside, anyone who's familiar with this movie would spot some jarring changes to the film itself almost immediately. The unaltered intro plays, complete with a typo, which would normally segue into a few establishing shots before entering the house in a perspective shot and the shadow of the cameraman being seen. A point which was heavily ridiculed.
Hey, it's a suburban Los Angeles neighborhood. Might want to get your door checked. Somebody tell Cool Cat there's a man that's trying to break into his house.
Look, I mean, usually seeing like a shadow or reflection of the cameraman would be something for me to make fun of. And while of course it is, it's very shitty and lazy, believe me when I say that this seems trivial in comparison to some of the events that are about to take place.
But in version 2, the perspective shot of the cameraman entering the house is cut to avoid showing the shadow, then is blended together with fades, and in order for this section to remain the same length and sync with the music properly, the first establishing shot was extended a bit. In YMS's video discussing the changes made to the movie, he states the ironically bad moments would remain, but likely due to further ridicule, Daddy Derek would go back on his word and remove these as well. As the movie progresses, changes like this become common. For instance, Cool Cat's line when Derek offers to answer the door for him was changed from, "Thanks, my hands are full," to, "Thanks, that's very nice of you."
I'll get it.
Thanks! My hands are very nice of you!
A line which both Adam and I Hate Everything mocked in their reviews.
I'll get it.
Thanks! My hands are full!
No, they're not. Remember, kids, Cool Cat says it's okay to be a lying little shit.
They're not, you fucking liar. You're not doing anything.
In fact, a lot of this movie's lines are redubbed, but even if I hadn't been watching both versions side by side, the dubs would be obvious either way. Almost none of them sync properly and have drastically different audio qualities. A few of them were done to amend lessons that would otherwise be bad for kids to hear, and some were done for seemingly no reason at all. In the case of the former, when Maria gets a call from a stranger, Cool Cat's line in version 2 has been changed to discourage answering calls like this, whereas in the original he encourages it.
But I don't know who it is.
Well, it's not good to open a text from a stranger, but I'm here, so see what it says.
But I don't know who it is.
Well, there's only one way to find out. So, see what it says.
This is something YMS highlighted as the best example of poorly teaching a lesson to the point of it actually putting kids at more of a risk.
Are you sure that encouraging kids to open unsolicited texts from strangers is the best idea? You know, some creep might have sent them something really inappropriate.
Don't leave our conversations open when you leave the computer.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Just using my noodle. I'll use this noodle so that you can use my other noodle.
Like, if you're going to incorporate modern technology into a film that's marketed towards children, and also you're trying to teach them life lessons, this might not be the best advice you could give them.
But in this same scene, when getting a call from Butch the Bully and told he stinks like a dog, his line was altered a bit from "dogs are my friends" to "cats and dogs are my friends."
You might look like a cat, but you stink like a dog.
Dogs are my friends! Identify yourself!
You might look like a cat, but you stink like a dog.
Cats and dogs are my friends! Identify yourself!
Was this a change anyone asked for? Was there any confusion with the original version? Why? Seriously, why was this changed? I can't even begin to guess what was going through Daddy Derek's head in places like this. It's unnecessary, sounds jarring, and fixes nothing. Like, seriously, come on. The only other intentional audio change in the movie is close to the end when Butch the Bully is arrested after having stolen candy, and Cool Cat thanks the cop. Version 2 crudely cuts the guy's name out, leading one to wonder if maybe this guy got some backlash for this.
Thank you, Officer Crest. You're very nice, Hope you have a nice day. Thank you, officer. You're very nice.
Now, I say this is the only intentional audio change because the rest of the movie is littered with faulty sound clips that weren't damaged before. At some points, the audio just cuts out entirely, or the right and left audio channels get out of sync.
Wow, that's great to hear. But hey, buddy, have a seat.
This was already a problem with the original, but version 2 is far worse. And when noticing the two cuts of the movie together, I also noticed that Mama Cat's lines almost always fall out of sync with how they were placed in the original, even at points in the movie where no other edits were made. The lines are just in a slightly different spot for seemingly no reason.
Well, of course. We would love to help you, sweetie.
Well, first, Cool Cat.
Now, I have a theory as to why, but if I'm right, whoever edited this is more incompetent than even Derek himself. You see, when making a movie or video of any kind, video and audio is divided into layers that can be stacked. In the case of audio, there are usually layers dedicated to the original audio from the camera footage, dubbed over lines, background music, and a lot more. And if I had to take a guess, I'd say that Mama Cat's lines, which were also dubbed in the original, are in a layer close to the bottom. And when whoever was editing this movie cut certain shots short and tried to close the empty space that was left behind, he probably didn't scroll down far enough to grab Mama Cat's lines when dragging all the clips, and didn't move them, which put them out of sync with the original footage. If this is true, it would also explain a lot of other slip-ups, both audio and video related. For instance, there are several points in the movie where a suspicious black line will appear off to one side of the frame for certain shots. This is similar to when a movie is pillar boxed, but this line is way too thin and only on one side. When I noticed this, I thought I'd accidentally moved the clip in the editing software, but turns out I didn't. The original editor did. Some shots were moved slightly out of frame by mistake in version 2, leaving a black line that goes away after a few shots. Again, any decent or even mediocre editor would have noticed this. And it's ironic because I found more errors like this than I did alterations that actually fixed the movie. So yes, version 2 is even worse on a technical level than the original cut. I will give them this. The second cut successfully edited out errors that came up whenever they spliced two shots together. In case you weren't aware, Daddy Derek only has one cat suit. So when Cool Cat and his mom are in the same shot together, they have to combine two different shots, which is usually obvious since you can see the borders between the two in the original. And at one point, they cropped one too far to make room for Mama Cat and cut off Cool Cat's legs a bit. But as far as I can tell, all instances of this are fixed in version 2. But as stated, a lot of these technical errors made the movie more ironically enjoyable. But the new technical issues with the audio in particular just make the experience more painful, especially when you're wearing headphones and the audio channels fall out of sync. And if you're curious what the total death count for the best moments of this movie is post-edit, it's bad. Cool Cat's weird stomach rubbing was cut entirely after being made fun of subtly by multiple reviewers.
Hey, Cool Cat.
The guy seen walking backwards into his house in the background of the original was axed from the film, and a lot of the unsubtle moans from the cameraman are gone too. So, that being said, you might wonder that with everything that's been taken away, has anything been added? Well, a few things, mostly innocuous. They added a few previously unused shots in places wherever they shortened a clip that posed an issue, like when the cameraman's breathing can be heard.
Have a seat.
And they did a few bits to help improve the pacing just a bit. Cool Cat now has a small scene establishing that he's going to be entering the green screen room. And during the parade, clips of Butch the Bully watching TV are spliced in. Presumably, this was in response to the widespread critique of the movie dropping Butch's plot during this segment. But neither of these new scenes really add much to the movie in my opinion. The film is still poorly paced, and these additional clips didn't change that, even for the portion where they were included. And that's about it. There are a few minor changes like shots zoomed in, some clips are cut shorter than they had been, and the advertisement for Cool Cat books was removed at the end. But this is where the changes end. If I had to divvy it up, I'd say about half the total changes made the movie, whether unintentionally or not, made it worse on a technical level, but almost all the changes made hindered the ironic enjoyment in some manner. And in a way, this is what Derek wanted. Cool Cat Saves the Kids was a movie created out of ineptitude by a man who went unquestioned by everyone or was surrounded by those who were equally incompetent. The movie was never made to be viewed ironically, and Daddy Derek has refused to accept that his audience enjoys it as such. Only in the past few years, when being able to exploit this audience to fund more projects, is Derek finally embracing it. But regardless, the original Cool Cat film seems to be continuously changing with no end in sight. But even after all I've said, I would still encourage you to pick up a copy of this movie. Altered or not, this movie is an ironic classic. The changes made have definitely weighed down on the viewing experience, especially for me when I watched it on my 20th birthday without knowing my favorite scenes were gone. But that didn't mean it still wasn't enjoyable. My friends and I still had a blast watching it because every second of this film has ironic value. Derek Savage couldn't fix it with a million cuts because as a genuine film, it's simply not fixable. Cool Cat may have saved the kids, but Daddy Derek can never save Cool Cat.
What makes Cool Cat so special is that it seems like Derek is never in on the joke somehow. It seems like no matter how long this goes on, he continues to have no sense of self-awareness to what he's actually making. The Twitter account for Cool Cat is one of the most hilarious things on the planet. Just scroll through those tweets because they are gold. Like it's the gift that keeps on giving. It never ends. It never ends, and it's consistently and thoroughly entertaining. You got Derek Savage's crime news video that he released talking about murder and rape on this kids channel, this channel that's supposedly for child audiences. Then he makes his 420 awards and promotes that on his YouTube channel that's supposedly for children. You know, an awards ceremony about weed. He tried to get Cool Cat in that, and the actor that played Cool Cat was like, no, this is a children's character, Derek, and had to convince him out of it, as amazing as that would be. And now they're not on good terms anymore, and there's this whole thing you can watch on that. The Red Suit interviews interviewed the guy who plays Cool Cat, Jason Johnson. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It really is. And now he's making Cool Cat stops a school shooting, apparently. So that's, I really hope it happens. Apparently it's happening. It almost seemed like he was going to back out of it, but he's, he doesn't understand why everything's funny, and that's part of what makes it funny. It's still genuine. It's not trying to be hilarious, and yet it is really, really, really funny. I support Cool Cat. I support the business. I'll keep promoting it and buying the products, even if the man's a man-child, even if he is very immature and immoral and kind of scary at the same time, but very entertaining. So it's great.